Hello, and welcome to the UK Counter Terrorism Podcast. Here, we take you inside one of the most pressing security challenges of our time. From the latest threats facing the UK, to the strategies and operations designed to stop them, this is where we break down the facts, cut through the noise, and bring you clear, informed insights. Whether you're in the security field, a student, or simply someone who wants to understand how terrorism impacts our world and how it's being fought, you're in the right place. Stay with us as we explore the front line of security, intelligence, and resilience. This is the UK Counter Terrorism Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the UK Counter Terrorism Podcast. My name is Josh, I'm your host, and this is the very first episode of the Counter Terrorism Podcast. We're here to chat, explore the realm of counterterrorism, but in a sector that's not very well talked about, and that is the private security sector. As it stands, it is the one bit in the industry that we are severely lacking, and that's the education and awareness of counterterrorism. There is a lot of people that are working hard to try and get it up, but it's still not quite there. And there is a lot we could do to improve that. And that's kind of the goal of this podcast, is to share awareness, knowledge, and hopefully get some really good people on to have a chat about it. So every episode I will be breaking down what's happening in counterterrorism, but more predominantly in the security sector. I will also bring my own segment onto it, and that's my own opinion on terrorism or counterterrorism. But also when I bring guests on, I'll be asking them, what is your opinion on this? And again, this is all opinions. Nothing here is designed to take anything away from anyone. It's all about spreading the awareness of counterterrorism within the industry. So I thought it was very appropriate that for this episode we go back to the beginning. We discuss what terrorism is and also what counterterrorism is. Areas within the industry that we're currently lacking, and also the areas that have been overlooked for a long time, but also get people start thinking, what does terrorism mean in my place of work, or what does it mean if we start doing something differently? So my background before we get going is I have worked in the industry for almost 10 years, all the way from the ground upwards, and now I've taken a back seat and I look at the industry from an academic point of view and to see how we can improve the industry and how we can move forward. So that's kind of my background, and I'll be relating to some stories throughout, I'm pretty sure, and hopefully you enjoy it. But before we get going, if you like it, please show your support by pressing like and subscribe, because that gives me the encouragement to keep going and to build more content for you guys. If throughout there's something that you're unsure on or I got wrong, please put it in the comment, because in the end of the day, education is the most important thing. And secondly, that you all enjoy it. If there's something that you'd like to see, please get in contact. And likewise, if you want to come on to the podcast, get in contact. But we'll move on to the next section. So before we really look into counterterrorism, we need to establish what terrorism is. And this is where it becomes quite tricky, and definitely from an academic point of view, because there is no global definition of what terrorism is. It all depends on where you're from, what background you're from. It will determine what the definition is. Here in the UK, the Terrorism Act 2000 defined terrorism as the use or threat of action designed to influence the government or intimidate the public for political, religious, or ideological purposes. Where if we look at the United States, their definition is slightly different, and that is the unlawful use of force or violence against a person or property to intimidate or coerce a government, the civilian population, or any segment thereof, or in furtherance of political or social objectives. Very different. Where if we look at the UK, it is more about the intent. So it's meant to intimidate or cause fear, whereas the United States, it has to be an act of violence. Do you see how it becomes quite tricky to come up with something within terrorism? It would be very easy if the United Nations turned around and gone, boom, this is the definition. But unfortunately it don't. So like I said, I will bring my own interpretation on it. And my interpretation on it is any act or intention to disrupt the normal flow of life is a type of terrorism. Whether that is the far right, where you're blowing up buildings or killing a lot of people, or where we look at the far left, where you're trying to stop lorries from doing their jobs or stopping ambulances coming through. Both of them have a purpose. And whether that is through their ideologically, is that even a word? Their ideological purposes, or their political beliefs, or their religious beliefs, it's whatever their intention is. That's kind of my perspective. But I'll be very interested to hear your perspective. So please put in the comments, what is your definition of terrorism? So I have written something down to kind of put a perspective to this video. And the definition we're going to use for this video is this. Counter-terrorism, in the context of the private security sector, is the set of strategies, practices, and actions aimed at preventing, detecting, and responding to terrorist threats, particularly in spaces and operations under private security responsibility. So that's kind of the definition this video is going to be working off. Excuse me. So, having all these different types of terminology or definitions really creates a problem, definitely in the academic side of stuff, but also when it comes down to policies and laws, because as you know, a lot of newer UK law is based on how Europe is. So the EU laws, even though we're not part of Europe, or even the United Nations when it comes to the actual creations of laws, they still try and mirror how things are. So without having a globally recognised definition, brings challenges. So, what is counterterrorism? We've explored what terrorism is, but what is counterterrorism? In basic, counterterrorism means to counter the terrorism. So, preventing. So whether that is by doing searches, stopping and searching someone from coming into a venue, so that they don't have anything that could cause harm to someone. And that is something that I actually want to talk about, is searching. I'm going to try and find a clip and I will put it into this podcast of how poor people search at sports venues. I worked at a sports venue a couple of years ago now, and I was on a response team at the front of the venue to assist with the police with antisocial behaviour and to help with that traffic flow of people. And I was stood there, and I was watching search lanes as people were going in. And I saw this person just walk through the search lanes. This person came over and probably tapped him on the shoulders, tapped him on the waist, and tapped their ankles. Was like, come on through. And I was sat there going, that wasn't even a proper search. What is the point? And I think that comes back to the beliefs of everyone deep down goes, oh, it won't happen to me. However, sports venues, if we look at big stadiums, they can hold tens of thousands of people. So the risk is there. So why aren't we doing our jobs properly? But I'll try and find the clip and I will add it into the segment. But I'm going to cover 4 areas in security, and we're going to discuss about the counter-terrorism and what it means to that particular area. So the areas I'm going to cover is access control and screening, surveillance and monitoring, information sharing with authorities, and emergency planning and response. So access control. Security do that every day. Whether that's going into a shopping centre, or whether that's going to a festival, pub, club, there is some sort of access control. Whether that is the doors, whether that's ID checking, or giving someone a pass to come in, or checking someone's passes. It's the type of access control. So someone going into an area with an intention of conducting activity or shopping, type of activity in there. So having that access control and screening. If you go into a lot of pubs and clubs, they will do random searches and they'll screen people to search. If someone's acting suspiciously, they'll ask them to search them. Because why are you acting suspicious? Put my teeth back in. Why are they acting suspiciously? So conducting searches. Surveillance and monitoring. So CCTV. Big one these days. If you go to London, it's like Big Brother. I don't think in London there are many blank spots. I'm pretty sure you're being watched everywhere. If you go into a shopping centre, you're being watched everywhere. But it's having a look at this CCTV and detecting abnormal behaviours. Or detecting something that shouldn't be in a place, such as a package or anything like that. It's a type of counter-terrorism, isn't it? Information sharing with authorities. Excuse me. So that is when you do see something abnormal, sharing it with the appropriate people. If we look back historically, and not even that historically, just back to Manchester Arena bombings. And I talk about it quite a lot because it's relevant. It's new. Or not new. It's not new anymore anyways. But there's a lot of evidence and there's a lot of learning materials in there. But if we look at the terrorist, and I'm going to call him a terrorist because we shouldn't remember his name because that supports what he was doing because he wanted to be a martyr. And I don't think we should ever do that. So the terrorist. We look back at the CCTV. His behaviours were very abnormal. members of the public went up to security and gone, oh, someone's acting abnormal over there. So having that courage as such, or that knowledge of the law and policy to report that up and share it with other authorities. Because if they reported it to the police, and they did, and again, it's the same principle, but we could be going down a rabbit hole, so I'm not going to do that. But having that knowledge about how to report things, how to share that information, because it's crucial. Again, it's another deterrent. And then finally, emergency planning and response. From my years from working within security, I could probably count on one hand how many times I've seen emergency planning. And the emergency planning I saw was more to do with fire. Nothing to do with terrorism. And I've worked in massive venues. I've worked at festivals and stuff. And I'm sure there are the plans there. But where does it get shared? At what level do we stop at? And I know with a lot of terrorism, there's a lot of confidentiality. Because if we're giving it to the terrorist, this is how we're going to respond, then they'll counteract that, won't they? They'll find a solution around it. So I do understand that. But I think the fact that private security and security operatives, they are the front line. They're the ones that are always going to be there first, because these attacks happen in public spaces. So these people need to know what to do. But it'd be interesting to hear from you guys and girls. What plans do you have in place, and at what level do you share them? And I'm not asking for the fine details, but just a simple, oh yeah, we've got a terrorist plan or response. But it'd be very interesting. But with all of these, it needs to be mentioned about training. There's such a lack of education within counterterrorism. Yes, we've got the ACT awareness or the ACT certificates or the see it, say it, sorted. But once you've done them once or twice, it becomes repetitive and you're literally just there to pass that certificate. First time, it's very interesting. But again, after that, it becomes tedious. But what other training out there that we could start implementing, or we could go, oh, actually, that'd be a good thing to add in. Because we need it. If we look at all four of those things, there are areas where we can get better. But we should always remember, no matter what areas we are, the security operatives are the eyes and the ears on the ground. And they are the front line. So these guys and girls are the most important areas that we need to improve. So in the next bit, we're going to explore why counterterrorism is important for the private security industry. So why is counterterrorism important in the security sector? Well, like I previously said, terrorists attack public areas. And where do security work? Predominantly in public areas. They want to cause mass destruction and cause as much panic. So in them areas is where security work. Whether that's at a music festival, whether that is at a shopping centre, it is where we work. So that's why it's so important. And our presence or our actions whilst working can deter attackers. It can disrupt the threats early, and it can build trust for businesses and communities. So why can it deter attackers? If a terrorist can see an area that's well protected or surveilled by security, they're less likely to start them plans because they want to cause the most disruption. So they look for vulnerable spots. If they can't find a vulnerable spot, then they won't follow through with their actions because the possibility of it not working could be quite high. So that's why it's important. But also disrupting threats early. So if you're finding a suspicious package, you can move the public away. And if it did explode, let's say it was an explosive, if we did move them away, well, it's not causing mass disruption because the public have been moved. They're going to be reassured that security have done their job, so it won't cause that panic or not as much panic. And building that trust for businesses and communities, well, if a business knows that their property is being protected well, they're going to be happy, aren't they? But also the communities, if the communities know we're all doing our jobs, well, they're going to have trust in the process. Because ultimately, there is economic reputational importance here. If we look back a year ago at that aeroplane that exploded taking off, well, I guarantee there were many people that were too scared to fly from that because, oh, what happens if my plane blows up? Well, we can look at that with a terrorist attack. If someone feels like they can't go outside because they're not safe, because they're going to get hurt, killed, well, they won't do that, will they? So if we can build that trust up, then fantastic. But also the reputation from these organisations. If an investor knows that a business has got good security, it's got good processes in place, well, they would be more inclined to invest, won't they? So if we're looking at festivals, if there was low risk in it going wrong, well, the investors of that festival will be more inclined to invest in it. Do you know what I mean? Putting my own personal opinion on this is the security is the front line, and it's ultimately their responsibility as much as the government's responsibility or the police. It's our responsibility. We should all take pride in keeping the public safe and ensuring that they get to go home safe and in good order. So why aren't people being more proactive for counter-terrorism? Why are people scared of the subject? Yeah, it's an abnormal thought. I've always been quite proactive, definitely in frontline security and making sure I'm doing a good enough job. I've worked at a venue where we had to evacuate it because there was a bomb threat, and post-incident, reflecting back on it, I was ashamed of how a lot of the security reacted. They didn't have a clue. And to me, it was quite a basic concept. Okay, let's move everyone as far away as possible. But why aren't we doing it more often? Yeah, I'm not really sure. I don't know how to answer that. If people could put their own opinions, I'd be very interested to hear that. But ultimately, it is our job. We are there to keep the public safe. So everyone's got such slopey shoulders that they're always trying to push the blame on someone else. but ultimately it's our responsibility. And it'd be quite interesting to see when Martin's Law comes in place. Yeah, I'm very excited for that, because I think a lot of what's been proposed we should be doing anyways. Doing checks, making sure the plans are in place. But yeah, ultimately, it is our responsibility. But moving on to the next section, talking about challenges facing the security sector. It's going to be quite interesting because, like I said, a lot of this is to people's perception of, oh, it's not my job. I don't need to worry about it. So, the challenges faced in the security sector. Well, the biggest challenge is the funding. No company wants to pay for something that they don't see value in it. And that's quite a worrying concept, because realistically, this should be getting funded. This is a crucial part of the job that it needs funding. With it being underfunded, it brings the lack of training. Like I said, there needs to be more training in this. Previously, most of my training came from the military. So I don't actually remember when I first done my SIA course how in depth we went into counterterrorism. It wasn't until the ACT certificates came out that people started getting any education to it. But I could be wrong. It could be just a slip of the mind. But yeah, I don't really remember it being in part of any of the courses. But the ACT certificates themselves, like I said, are good the first time. But second time actually it was good. But the third, fourth time, it became quite tedious and just wanted to get past, because it was nothing new. It was nothing engaging, because it's the exact same content as previously. But it gets us to question, what other training could we bring into it? And there's so much to learn about terrorism, because most of terrorism training is focused on the far right. And a lot of what we talk about is far right. What about the far left? What about the people that are trying to stop lorries and stuff like that? It's a form of terrorism, because it's stopping infrastructure. So there is so much more training we can do. We just need to get it in place. The kind of next challenge that a lot of people face, or organisation face, or teams face, is the high staff turnover. If you look through security, a lot of people are either doing it self-employed, or they're doing it through PAYE, but they're not full-time staff, or they're on low or 0-hour contracts, and they could be working multiple places. So you got that turnover of staff, or you got staff that don't regularly work with each other. And when that comes about, it brings its own challenges in. Because if you're working with people differently, can you fully trust who you're working with, that they're doing their job? Because there's definitely times where I could confidently say I didn't trust the person to the right of me. And that was due to the lack of training. Purely down to the lack of training. So that inconsistency of teams and their expertise is a massive challenge in the industry, isn't it? You'd find it everywhere. Where if you look at other industries, so if you look at the police, well, everyone knows the level of training they've had. They work with each other regularly. So they can respond better, can't they? And if you're already trying to play catch up, well, counter-terrorism is a afterthought to a lot of people, and it shouldn't be. It should be at the front. But again, there are so many other things people are thinking about, and there's a lot of other risks that unfortunately do take priority, and it shouldn't do, but it does. Balancing vigilance with customer service. Well, we've all probably worked with someone that's been over vigilant and under vigilant actually, but then people that are so blinkered that something's going to go wrong or something's going to kick off, that they miss other things. They miss other traits that they should have picked up on. And likewise, that under vigilance. Well, if you're not being vigilant, then you're not picking things up. But that has a massive detrimental effect, that over vigilance with our customer service. Having them conversations with people. The power of hello. We've all had the ACT training, the power of hello. Well, if you're being blinkered, well, you're then forgetting about that power of hello. So that is a challenge faced within the sector, isn't it? Communication gaps, not only with law enforcement, but with each other, or the different layers within the organisations. Well, if we haven't got that clear communication or understanding what the process is, then how can we do our jobs effectively? I know from working different venues, who do I report that to? Or who do I speak to about that? Because you're not there, technically they're full-time staff, they don't really give you that time to explain it. And we all know everyone should have inductions. Everyone knows that we should know the procedures, but unfortunately a lot of times it gets forgotten, or it's an afterthought, and people go, oh, you don't need to worry about that, don't worry, it's not your responsibility. And again, with law enforcement, how many times have people gone, oh, I need help, or I need emergency services, and there's been a delay in time, or even them just not turning up? Again, that communication gaps is a massive challenge. And finally, the risk of complacency. Like I've previously said, everyone has the attitude, it won't happen here, it won't happen to me. Oh, why would they worry about my area blowing it up or causing disruptions? Well, unfortunately, it could happen anywhere. We already know that these people want to cause alarm. Well, they can cause alarm anywhere, can't they? They will look for vulnerabilities, and if you've got that complacency, well, of course they're going to target you, aren't they? So them sort of challenges that security face every single day when it comes to counter-terrorism, it's very apparent. And the number one trait from all of those is training. Better training. And I regularly have conversations with people about training and how the lack of education. And if we mirror it to other industries or organisations, it becomes apparent how far behind we are. And there's so much more we can do. But I'll be interested to hear your guys' views. What do you think about the training element? So you all be glad this is probably the last few minutes of this podcast. It's been quite interesting to explore what terrorism is, what counter-terrorism is, what challenges we face, and why counter-terrorism is so important within the industry. But to summarise today's episode, there is no universal definition of terrorism, which causes us a lot of issues, definitely in the academia side of stuff. We've looked at what counter-terrorism means for private security and why it's critically important, and some of the challenges faced by security professionals. On my next video, or the next episode, we're going to look more into training and the lack of training, what potentially we could do, and what that means to the industry, and what barriers we face with them types of training. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this. I've enjoyed it. It's given me a lot of food for thought. Like I said right at the beginning, if you've enjoyed this, please press like. Also show your support by subscribing, because it gives me that encouragement to continue going. If there is something that you would like to see, please put it in the comments. If there's something that I've missed and you've gone, why didn't he cover that? How stupid of him. Well, put it in the comments, because I'd love to talk about it. And if you would like to come on to this podcast, please get in touch. I will be looking for people to come on, people to question, but also to get their perspectives. Today's episode's been a little bit different, because it's just me talking technically to myself. No different to normal, but oh well, it's been good fun. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope to catch you all soon. Thanks for watching.